We welcome members of the public. Instructions on making public comment are noted in item 1 of the agenda. We will ask at each agenda item whether or not there is public comment. Catherine, will you please do a roll call?
Yes, Trustee Kishinev.
Here.
Trustee DeLuna. Here. Trustee Rios.
Here.
And Trustee Dodd.
Here. I know Trustee Iverson is excused today. I know Trustee Olson will be about 20 minutes late, and I think Trustee Baker will be about 10 minutes late. Okay. We will.
And our student trustee.
Oh. Thank you.
And student trustee.
Save the best for last.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry about that. We will go to the Pledge of Allegiance. So, when our student trustee, maybe you could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Public allegiance. God, indivisible.
Thank you very much. Any changes to the agenda? Okay, I'm looking around, seeing none. We will adopt the agenda by consensus. And the board will now move on to public comment on closed session items, devoting up to 15 minutes to hear comments regarding closed session items. Individual comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Catherine, do we have any public comment?
We have no public comments.
I have not seen any either, and I don't see anybody raising their hand in our crowd this afternoon. So we will move into closed session covering labor negotiations and public employee performance evaluation and return at approximately 5:30 p.m. The board is returning back from closed session at approximately 5:34 p.m. There is nothing to announce out of closed session, and we will move on to general public comment, which is an opportunity governed by the Brown Act. By definition, the board is given an opportunity to hear concerns, perspectives, and differing vantage points. The board is not able under the Brown Act to engage in any level of conversation or discussion, but we look forward to this opportunity to gather community input. At this time, the board will devote up to 15 minutes to review comments to the Board of Trustees regarding any matter that is not appearing as an agenda item this evening, but over which the board has jurisdiction. No action or discussion will occur at this time on such items, and each comment shall last no longer than 3 minutes. Catherine, do we have any public comment?
We do not.
Okay, and I haven't received anything either. So we will move on to our consent calendar. Does the board have any changes? Seeing none, I'll ask if there's any public comment on closed session, or consent calendar items.
No, we do not.
Okay, well, I would welcome a motion to approve consent.
So moved. Second.
Thank you, Trustee Luna, and thank you, Trustee Baker. All in favor?
Aye.
The consent is approved unanimously. Going on to our first general information discussion item is land acknowledgement.
Thank you, President Dodd. With us today, we have Dr. Moonsami, our Senior Director of DEI, who is going to walk us through our land acknowledgement.
Good afternoon, members of the board, Dr. Powell, members of the President's Cabinet, Napa Valley community, and other members of our larger community. I'm pleased to bring before the board a resolution to adopt the Napa Valley Land Acknowledgement. Next slide, Catherine. So first, I'd like to start off by thinking about the purpose of land acknowledgements, how they function in society. So we make land acknowledgements to honor the original inhabitants and traditional stewards of the land we are on, who are still here despite hundreds of years of efforts to erase and displace them. Also to show reverence and respect for our Indigenous communities and support their continuing efforts to survive and thrive. They're important in beginning to repair relationships with Native communities and with the land. We encourage land acknowledgements to support Indigenous land-led efforts to engage in truth-telling and reconciliation, to broaden the awareness of the history that's led to this moment, and to resist and dismantle ongoing colonialism. And as an educational institution, it's important also that we ground our own work in the larger context of this place and reflect on how we came to be here and inspire us to take meaningful action. So this, I'd like to acknowledge that this is provided by the Susquehanna Intertribal Council for the purpose of land acknowledgements. Thank you. Next slide. So why did we develop a land acknowledgement at Napa Valley College? So firstly, it's important to reflect upon and acknowledge the history of the spaces in which we conduct our business here, specifically at Napa Valley College. This is an opportunity for education in action, for us to think about how we can promote learning about the history and experiences of Native populations beyond what happens in the classroom, and to encourage this learning in other spaces around the campus, and to include communities that are a part of our Napa Valley College larger community that aren't in the classroom, so our staff groups. And it's an opportunity to democratize learning through the land acknowledgement. Thirdly, it's an important best practice in educational institutions. So across the country, not only educational institutions, but a lot of other institutions are also developing land acknowledgements. It's part of a larger social justice orientation to acknowledging the history of colonialism and the ongoing impacts of colonialism. And this is an opportunity to acknowledge that history of colonialism and to make an effort through land acknowledgements, not only to acknowledge that history, but also to think about institutional commitments to the communities who have been adversely impacted. Next slide, please. So our Land Acknowledgement Committee, we established this in October of 2021. This came out of the DEI committee, and so there was a work group that was established, which is comprised of members of the DEI committee. So the members of our work group are Luis Alcazar, Dr. Catherine Busquet, Dr. Alejandro Guerrero, Chantel Ridgel, who joined the group a little later in the development, but we brought her on because we were thinking about institutional commitments and thinking about land. And at the Upper Valley campus, there is already a Native American garden. And so we're thinking about other opportunities to engage in work to memorialize and honor the Native history in this region. And then I also am a part of the work group. Then we also invited Charlie Toledo, who represents the Susquehanna Intertribal Council. And her participation was really important to the work of our group. She was an important cultural resource, an important purveyor of the history of Indigenous people in this region. So we really value and thank her for her participation in this effort as well. Next slide. So now I'd like to talk you through the steps that we took in the development of the land acknowledgement. So first, our work group engaged in research on land acknowledgements. We looked at land acknowledgements that were produced at other institutions. We researched best practices in the development of land acknowledgements. And so we started with a history, so we understood the work that we were undertaking. We then issued the invitation to the Susquehanna Intertribal Council to participate in the development of our land acknowledgement. We were very pleased when Charlie Toledo agreed to be a part of our work group. We then started to review samples of land acknowledgements that were produced by people who were a part of our community. So there were already people at Napa Valley College that had developed and were reading land acknowledgements as a regular part of their work. So we started by looking at those examples. We also received examples of land acknowledgements from the Susquehanna Intertribal Council, and we looked at those examples too. We selected text from these various samples and we put them together to create a draft of our land acknowledgement. And so we had several meetings during which time we revised that document to really think through the language that we were using, why we were incorporating the language that we were incorporating, revising it for clarity of thought, revising it also with the intent for what it's supposed to do, which is to honor history, but also to look forward and think about its relationship to our college and what our college can do to strengthen relationships with the Indigenous communities. From then, we drafted a form that we were circulating to representatives of Native American tribes in this area. And we asked them for their input on the draft that we had developed. We received input from those representatives and we incorporated their recommendations. During this time, we had also been providing updates to the DEI committee on our progress as a work group. And we shared versions of the various drafts as it was being developed. And then we finalized our land acknowledgement and submitted it for inclusion in May of 2022. We submitted it to be included on the board agenda. At that time, the interim superintendent, superintendent president, Dr. Frost, decided that it was not appropriate for it to be added to the agenda at that time. So it was withheld.
I think just to be clear on that, as I was in that conversation, I think just remembering that conversation very well is that the chancellor's office was recently coming out for guidance in terms of land acknowledgements, and my recollections, at least what Dr. Frost expressed to the board, is wanted time to understand what the chancellor's office was doing with respect to land acknowledgements and the guidance that the chancellor's office was providing.
Thank you for the clarification. All right. So when Dr. Powell started his tenure as president Napa Valley College, we engaged in conversation with him about our land acknowledgement, and we presented the written version and the spoken version of the land acknowledgement to Dr. Powell. We engaged with Dr. Powell about the language and, importantly, the institutional commitments to Native populations. So our committee, our work group, did further work on the land acknowledgement. We continued to engage in research, now this time on scholarly literature reflecting the history of California Indigenous communities and also specifically regional Indigenous communities. We also looked at institutional commitments at other institutions to get examples of what other colleges and universities were doing. And through that process, we engaged in the development of proposed institutional commitments from Napa Valley College. So we provided a revised land acknowledgement statement to Dr. Powell, and then based on his feedback, we did some final revisions, and that is the version that you have before you right now. Next slide, please. So, the Land Acknowledgement Toolkit. Now, this was released in fall of 2022, which is actually after the bulk of our work was done. But our work group did go through that Land Acknowledgement Toolkit, and I'm happy to report that our process was very much in alignment with the process that's recommended by the Chancellor's Office. So that Land Acknowledgement Toolkit, though, is a very useful resource, and that's something that I think it'll be valuable for us to include in the resources on our website that is devoted to the land acknowledgement. But we set that up because it's not only about how to produce the tool, the land acknowledgement, but it also contains a lot of information about terminology, resource information on contacting various agencies that engage with Indigenous communities, etc. So it's really a very nice, valuable resource. Next slide, please. Now, I want to speak a little bit about how the land acknowledgement connects with our student equity plan. So the latest version of the student equity plan, which was submitted in November of last year, focuses on two disproportionately impacted populations. One of those is American Indian Native Alaska students. So the goals in the student equity plan for this population, for this disproportionately impacted population, include reducing the enrollment gap by 30%, reducing the gap by 15% of students that complete transfer level math and English within 1 year of first taking either of those courses, to reduce the existing gap of transfer rate to a 4-year institution by 15%. It also includes strategies such as establishing a Native American Advisory Committee and also a work group to identify the cultural traditions, norms, and perspectives of Indigenous peoples. Another strategy is to offer additional courses in Native American studies, to increase Native American cultural symbols and markers around campus. And all of these are to create a more inclusive environment and sense of belonging for Native American students. And the land acknowledgement is one step toward creating that more inclusive environment for our students. And we know that when we have a more inclusive environment, it leads to better outcomes for our students. Next slide, please. So as part of the development and the dissemination of drafts of the land acknowledgement, we've also been engaged in providing educational opportunities for people to learn about the communities, the tribes that inhabit our area. So we had a series which was titled Onisati's Ways of Being and Doing. And this was a 4-part series. It was led by Tek Gapaldon and Desiree Harp. This was organized by a member of our work group, which is Luis Alcazar, and it was supported by the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. So the 4 lectures focused on 4 various areas. One is spirituality, another area is arts and culture, another area was sustainability practices, and then the 4th area was history. And as we know, these are kind of overlapping areas. So there was a really nice, full kind of comprehensive presentation on Onisati's culture and existence and practices. So this educational programming, I shared the information with the Napa Equity and Inclusivity Council so that has membership from, the Napa Valley Unified School District and other organizations. And actually, I was really very pleasantly surprised that many people from the community took part in this series, and we got really great feedback on it. So this educational programming around, that was developed around the development of the land acknowledgement was very successful in strengthening our community ties, and also with sharing information throughout the college community, engaging not only students, but also our staff and people at various levels of the organization and in various departments. So lastly, I want to think about our next steps moving forward. So in alignment with our student equity plan, we understand that it's very important for the college to receive guidance from the Native American community. And so we're going to be establishing a Native American Advisory Committee. This is something that we had decided to do in advance. And then when we looked at the Chancellor's Toolkit, that's also a recommendation in the toolkit. So we're very pleased to be engaging in that work and establishing that committee. We're also going to think about educational opportunities to continue to share the history and culture of Native peoples as a part of our regular cultural programming here at the college. And then we also want to think about the appropriate allocation of resources and development of programs to support our American Indian and Native Alaska populations. And this is detailed in the student equity plan. So that's the end of my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Manzami. Any questions?
I have a question.
Thank you.
In doing all of this work, I'm just in, some of these goals to increase the Native American populations here at the college. Like, did you get a sense of what the population of these communities is?
I can't tell you right now what that population is, but I'm happy to provide that information to you. We have looked at demographic information about the population of students that we already have. And we know that this is an underserved community in our area. We know, for example, that some of our statistics, for example, students who express interest in Napa Valley College and then the number that actually enroll, that, that's a low number for the Native American population. So if we engage in efforts to really reach out to them and help them to understand that this is a welcoming and inclusive space for them, we anticipate that we can increase the number of students that actually enroll at Napa Valley College. So, but I'm happy to look at what the population is in the Napa Valley and provide.
I just think it would be interesting to know what that population is and the numbers of those that, like you said, show interest and the ones that actually enroll and how many people we actually have and might be able to attract.
I'll provide that to you.
Thank you.
Trustee Kishnev?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to thank you for bringing this forward, Dr. Manzami. I think this is great stuff, and I appreciate everybody's work on it. Charlie Toledo, especially, she's a wealth of information. So thank you.
She really is. Thank you very much.
I'd just like to echo that. Thank you for all the hard work. I know since last May, I've been waiting for this to come up again. So I really appreciate it. And everybody's hard work on this too.
Thank you.
Trustee Baker?
Morning. Are we gonna read it? I mean,
I'm happy to read through it if you'd like.
Sure.
Would you like me to read through it?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'll read the longer written version. I'll read the oral version of it, the spoken version. Okay. And you've got the written version, which is the version that would appear in our written materials. So as we gather today, it is important to acknowledge that Napa Valley College and the surrounding Napa Valley sit on the unceded, traditional, ancestral, and contemporary homelands of the Miwok, Patwin, who are comprised of 3 federally recognized tribes, the Cachil-Dehe Band of Winton Indians of the Calusa Indian Community, the Quetzal-Dehe Band of Winton Indians, and the Yocha-Dehe Winton Nation, and the Wapo, including the Mishawal-Wapo, also known as the Onatsatis peoples. As part of Napa Valley College's mission of preparing students for evolving roles in a diverse, dynamic, and interdependent world, and in accordance with the college's values of honesty, integrity, inclusivity, and respect for others, we make this acknowledgement. We also affirm that this acknowledgement is insufficient. It does not undo the harm that has been and continues to be perpetrated against Indigenous people, the land, and water. May we hold steady in our commitment to be in solidarity and in action to seek equity and justice with the Miwok, Patwin, and Wapo peoples.
I just think it's beautiful. I really appreciate both of them, both versions, and I look forward to adopting this or a version at some point.
Yeah, because it's a first reading. Okay. Well, thank you. And Dr. Moonson, would you, for our next, because we have to do a second reading too, would you just make, just in case we have any other members of that, because we have to do another second reading, which I assume will be next month. I just wanted to, which I'm sure you talk with Dr. Powell about, but be around or make yourself available just in case we have more members of the public that might come next month for our second reading for approval, which I'm sure will be straightforward, but just in case if anybody's here, it'd be nice to have you as a resource.
I will be traveling at a conference, but I can certainly be available via Zoom.
Okay, cool.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. Well, we will move on to our next agenda item, which is the CCCT board election packet. Trustee DeLuna, as you saw, provided some nice recommendations since she has a little insider's knowledge. And if anybody has any questions or comments or a different direction that you'd like the board to consider, this is the time to share those thoughts. I see shaking heads indicating none. Catherine, do we have any public comment on this item?
No, we do not.
Okay, thank you. Well, I would welcome a motion to approve naming the individuals, the trustees highlighted on the sheet posted on the agenda.
I'll make a motion that the board adopt the slate that was
That's a
recommended
better word. Yeah,
by Trustee DeLuna.
I'll second.
thank you, Trustee Rios, and thank you, Trustee Olson. All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? The slate is adopted unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee DeLuna, and thank you, Trustee Rios. We will look to a revision of our calendar. Due to changes, basically you see 2 changes in August in anticipation, I think, of a potential late hiring of part-time faculty. So want to move that date a little earlier, and then in September to approve a budget by a state deadline. I have no issues with this. I do know that I will not be able to attend August because I have already made plans for that. Yeah, so just an FYI, Trustee DeLuna, Vice Chair. Any comments or questions? Catherine, do we have any public comment on this
I
item?
have no comments.
Okay. I'd welcome a motion for approval of these changes to the agenda calendar.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Baker, for your motion, and Trustee DeLuna for your second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Approved unanimously. We will go to information item 9.1, district initial proposal for reopeners with classified professionals. Don't have a presentation on this, but there is something posted on the agenda. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, and then we'll move to 9.2, classified professionals initial proposal for reopeners. Any questions or comments on this item? Okay, then we will go to Mr. Reeves' show. Agenda item 12.1, unrestricted general fund update and adjusted budget.
Thank you, Trustee Dodd. Trustee Olson is apparently volunteered to be my sidekick on this, so we're counting on her for good information. First of all, there are two items here, and Trustee Dodd, we can handle them however you wish. We will need an action on one of them, or at least we're recommending an action on one of them. Let me provide you some context to begin with by pulling up the Fund 11 report as of February 28th. Just as a reminder, this is through February 28th, and it's reflects activity, both revenues and expenses. Unless you would like to spend some time on the other columns, I'm going to point you toward the far right column. If you recall, the right column indicates the percentage variance compared to the previous year in revenues and expenses. If you look at the numbers in parentheses above that, at the very top of the sheet, it says 8 over 12 equals 67%. So 8 months into the year is 67% of the year. And while it's not a perfect indicator, it's pretty good according to Trustee Baker, who recommended it. So if you look at the percentages in the far right column, you'll want to measure those generally against where we are in the year. And that gives you a sense of where we are compared to last year at the very same time in terms of percentages. So the first horizontal blue column says that we're at about 62% of the revenue that we received as compared to last year at 63%. We're in pretty reasonable shape there. Our property tax revenues are close, not exactly on, but close. I'm not as concerned about that. Those are generally timing issues. So I think you're doing generally pretty well there. If we move down to salaries and Catherine, are we there? Salaries are trending again very nicely compared to last year. We're at about 62% compared to 67% of our budget being spent at this point last year. That's a very positive number. I will remind you that salaries and benefits account for 85% of our budget. So these are fairly healthy variances, positive variances. So at 5% on salaries, and if you drop down below to employee benefits, our variance is 9%, I believe. Yes, 9%. And so we're trending again in a very healthy way there. When you move down to books and supplies, you'll notice that we're at about 56% compared to 62%. These are fairly small numbers compared to others. And some of these will change a bit as we move forward, but we're trending in a good way there as well. Our operating expenses are the area that we've jumped up a bit on. Again, we're at about $400,000 over where we were this time last year. And we will, that is due to some timing, some reclasses, and I'll point out in a few minutes some additional expenses. However, we're still trending in a fairly positive direction. Let's continue moving down, Catherine. So our total operating expenses, our other operating expenses were at about 62% spent this year as compared to 70% last year, still trending in a positive direction. Our capital outlay is at 113%. I'll share with you that that's inflated a little bit because we made a decision to purchase some leased vans that we use for athletics with a break-even point of March this year. So we're leasing those vans. And so you're seeing a purchase price there, but we have already paid for them effectively, and we own them now. We purchased them because they were sitting dormant for the last 2 years. The mileage was low, and the condition was good. And we would have had to release those vans. So we made a decision to purchase those. And so you're seeing the purchase price being reflected there, but the leases would have terminated elsewhere in the budget. So that's one reason why that number's jumped a bit. So in terms of total expenditures, thank you, Catherine. We'll move to the right. There we go. We're trending at about 62% as compared to last year, where we had spent about 68% of expenditures compared to last year. So we're trending fairly well. This is showing we're about $1.3 million ahead of last year in our expenditures. We do anticipate some additional revenues as projected over last year. So I think we're in reasonable shape. I provide that as context for a request for an adjusted budget. But before we go there, I would certainly entertain any questions that you have about this report through February.
I don't see anything, Mr. Reeves.
Trustee Dodd, if you'll allow me to move on to a recommendation for a budget adjustment. I've represented in last month that I thought this was going to be a fairly modest budget adjustment. And it is less modest than we say that I anticipated last year. And I'd like to walk through that with you. The memorandum indicates that through our ongoing process of budget review, we've recognized that we've taken on some additional responsibilities, certainly in the course of reasonable operations at the institution, others as a bit of a surprise that have lent us to make a request for a budget adjustment. So what my recommendation will ultimately be is that we make an adjustment to the budget, anticipating that our revenues will continue to exceed our expenditures, and we will be able to continue to make a contribution to our reserves at the end of the year. However, the amount of that contribution will obviously be a little bit different than we anticipated at the outset. Could you scroll down to the spreadsheet, Catherine? Here's a summary of some of the expenses that we have included in a request for a budget adjustment. We've engaged some consultation to address some of the issues on our campus, and as Dr. Powell has arrived and has taken the initiative to address some of these. A governance consultation, a staffing consultation. We've done a little bit of financial data consultation to engage the folks who did the FICMAT report to provide the ongoing context for some financial projections. We have IT consultations for HR and resources, admissions and records and finance that are aligned with the building back better after the cyber attack. We'll have some expenses covered in the cyber attack, but these particular expenses would not be. We have an overlooked psych tech apprenticeship bill that was lost in somebody's desk drawer for a few years. And so we had to obviously make good on that. It was $205,000. We have a lease with the Upper Valley campus for their city hall. I'm moving down to facilities here. They did some tenant improvements there so they can move in their city hall and ultimately their police department. We had some obligations for code issues and some water drainage issues. They asked us to do them. We asked for some bids, and we determined that it was best that the contractor on site could sub that out. And that's hovering around $60,000. You may recall that we have a need to address the ash landfill remediation. The ash landfill was part of a dump site for the hospital across the road in the early 1950s, prior to the college receiving the land. However, the county needs to make sure it's reasonably mitigated before we put housing students there. We believe we've done a good job of doing that prior to construction. The county wants to be sure that we've taken every every step possible, frankly, to address that. So we have some environmental consultation there. The $50,000 there is likely to be just under $100,000 total. The impact on this budget, because of timing of payment, is likely to be about half of that. Some remediation is required, including putting a fence around that. I would want to be careful that I describe this carefully. The actual landfill, the county's calling this a remedial step or a remedial step, but they may come back and say you need to do a little bit more based on the environmental analysis. So this may not be the last time you hear about the ash landfill. We have some swimming pool repairs I think you're aware of. The big surprise for me, and if you own a home and pay your gas bill, it's probably not a big surprise for you, is that we had this bill for $280,000 in natural gas. I kept going back asking for a new meter read, review of the therms used, et cetera, et cetera. It's a real number. And it's almost 5 times what we normally pay during the same period, $280,000. So that totals $825,000 in additional expenses over what you agreed in your budget of September. How we will pay for this? You'll notice that we're trending very positively in our salaries and benefits. That's the area where I would propose that we do the adjustments so that we project our budget projections more. We'll take funds from that high level budget and put those into some of these expenses in our budget to more accurately reflect where those expenses are coming from. And we'll take our salaries and benefits. We won't take it all, obviously. A budget is a tool. It's never exact. That's why I'm in front of you asking for an adjustment. But that's our course of action should you approve this adjustment.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Any questions on the board? Trustee Baker?
First thing I want to do is say thank you. I think this is the first time this has ever happened, but so appreciate us being informed. The other thing I wanted to ask a couple of questions, just kind of projecting for future. So the psych tech, is that, I'm assuming that, so we're looking at 3 years that we didn't pay. Are we assuming that we'll be paying roughly a third of that annually going forward and making certain it gets budgeted for future years? And also kind of the same question regarding utility costs, because I've had the same conversation at my agency about utilities and postage and things like that just seem to be ballooning out of control. And just wondering kind of what our plan is so that we don't get caught short every year. And so that, and then the other final question I had was about the ash landfill. I know there's been some interest in trying to determine who really should be responsible for paying for that. And I know that that's going to be something that we'll have to get dealt with down the road. My question, I guess, is if this is coming out of general fund right now, if we were later to identify another entity that was responsible for that, would we then be reimbursing ourselves into general fund?
Trustee Olson, let me start with the psych tech question. Your assessment is correct. This was an expense that we would have incurred every year. It's a shared expense with the state program, and we anticipate roughly a third of this every year. I can't say it's going to be on the dollar, but roughly a third or so. But we owe them an annual payment, and this was a catch up to that, and an unfortunate oversight as well. I think the relationship there, while it has been repaired, was a difficult one for about 15 minutes. Your second question is related to utilities. I don't have an easy answer for this. We asked for an explanation from the gas company. They gave us the standard response. I think they're getting from questions from everyone. They're calling it a global crisis in terms of natural gas supply and obviously costs. we're hearing that it could level off soon. It's a big concern for us at these numbers in our budget. So I think we have to, we're going to try to understand how this will change over the rest of the fiscal year and try to normalize it, if you will, in our budget so we aren't surprised quite as much. These are big expenses, however, certainly for an organization like us. We also need to look at, we've had an extraordinarily cold winter as well. So we have to either buy more sweaters or to figure out how we're going to reduce our costs here. It's primarily in natural gas. Your final question about reimbursement, I've already spoken to the attorney about who is ultimately responsible for the site. In my previous experience, I found that a governmental agency cannot move the responsibility for that landfill to another party. And that was on another site. But the attorney I spoke with is no longer with the firm, so I need to reignite that conversation. The funds, if we were able to recover funds, it would be repaid to the institution, and of course, the board would have discretion over where you land those funds. Did I catch all the questions? Okay.
Thank you. Any questions, trustees? Mr. Maybe this is more of a question for, this is more just dealing with this gas issue for you, Dr. Powell, is, I know when we're thinking about facilities master plan, which is going to be coming up down the road, it'd be interesting to kind of look off, obviously for moving off of natural gas. Obviously not, for financial reasons, but I think there's incredible environmental reasons too, to do so. And maybe it doesn't make sense for like our cooking programs, for instance, that might, need a gas burner. That's just one example of maybe, yeah. In some cases. But yeah, I think it would be nice to really consider that in our facilities master plan and in some world where this district could potentially move out for put a bond or something like that down the road. I don't even like saying that word, but it'd be nice to consider that amazing opportunity, how that might play a part in that appeal. Trustee Baker.
Follow-up comment. I know there might be grants also available for looking into alternative energy options. Based on the fact that my Halloween decorations finally went away yesterday, we have wind, so we can maybe take advantage of that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Most of our heating is gas.
Yeah,
heating a swimming pool to 81 degrees in temperatures that are in the 30s takes a buck or two to keep going. So that is an insight that we need to pursue vigorously, given what we're up against.
Okay. Well, we don't have a trustee Olson.
Something?
Yes, please.
Just to follow up, yesterday the Bay Area Air Quality Control Board passed changes that will phase out natural gas. So I think that this is a good direction if we're starting to think about this. It's going to become something statewide at some point in the future.
So with that, I think it would be just a good idea to do a motion for approve this adjusted budget. We don't have any formal resolution, but just to have some formal action from the board. So I'd welcome a motion to approve this adjusted budget.
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Trustee Baker.
I'll second.
Nope.
And we'll give it to Trustee Rios. Yeah, I don't know. All in favor? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you. You will see the adjustments reflected in the next month's report. Thank you.
We'll move on to NVTA. I see you're technically honorable, but I consider you honorable. Kate Miller is here on behalf of NVTA. No. I consider you very honorable.
Executive
Very honorable.
Director, but thank you, President Dodd.
And then how do we want to do, I think the order is Kate can do a presentation. Yeah, perfect. Okay. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Great. So, good evening, Board, President Dodd and Dr. Powell. Thank you so much for letting us come and present this new concept for a transit stop at the college. I just wanted to also say that for those of you who aren't familiar with the Napa Valley Transportation Authority, we run the Vine Transit system. We administer a number of projects around town. You might have heard of the Vine Trail. We've been delivering segments of the Vine Trail, and we're also responsible for the Soskel Junction project that's going on at the intersection of 221 and 29. And I can guarantee you it's going to be much better when it's done. So thanks for your traffic patience. So the problem with the current stop is that when the Vine bus needs to go northbound, it goes along Soskel and then it turns into Magnolia and it drops students off at the existing stop, and then it has to go all the way down to Streblo and then come back out again. So a lot of unnecessary fuel waste, associated emissions, time loss by the people, especially the students that ride the bus, for any time that a vehicle is heading northbound. Southbound is working fine. So what we wanted to do, next slide, please, is we wanted to, or proposing to do another stop on the opposite side of the street, just a little bit north of the existing stop. And what we would do is that indicates the location where that yellow box is, or is it orange box? So that gives you a feeling for where it's located. Next slide. This one's a tough drawing to look at. So we've gotten some preliminary designs working with RSA on this. And the next slide actually has some labels that I added. So you get a better feeling for what we're doing now. If we were to be able to have this, we'd be able to go northbound and drop students off and pick students up immediately without having to do that big loop around campus. The existing stop is located just to the above it on the drawing. There's a pedestrian crossing that we would add. Where those two arrows are is where the buses would pull in and then pull back out again. And then we would add a new wall and guardrail. That's probably would be required by Caltrans. That's on the highway side of the proposed facility. And I have handouts if you need the handouts, but I think you probably also have a copy of the presentation. So the next slide. So I'm going to answer questions here if you have any, but I wanted to say that if there is a next step, I sent a draft memorandum of understanding to Dr. Powell, which basically outlines what we would want you to do right now, which is to allow us to move forward and to commit to the project. And the reason being is that, you know, like you, I'm a government agency and I'm using public funds to do this. And the design element of it is about $100,000, and I don't want to move forward expending that money without a firm commitment to allow us to move forward on this project. We would be fully responsible for the construction, for the design, for the maintenance of the facility. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you much. Just as additional context, we did have the chance to actually speak about this in Real Property. There was a discussion and presentation in the Real Property Committee in which the Real Property Committee did endorse the moving forward of the suggestion for us to engage in this partnership. The college is strongly in support of this. While there are a number of details that, of course, we need to hammer out and work through, the action item specifically that we were requesting is the board's to consider an action item to enter into this formal agreement with NVTA to allow them to move forward with the next steps of the design feature and actually, you know, work through the logistics as necessary and formally get the work started.
Thank you, Dr. Powell. Trustee Rios.
Yeah, may I just clarify one point? When we had the meeting with Grant and Rebecca, one of the questions was, you know, the cost construction, and they explained that yes, the agency was going to be handling all of that, That the other question that I asked was about the maintenance, and they had at that point said that maintenance would be turned over to the college and the expense. So I heard you say the opposite.
We would maintain the facility as well.
So yes, we did recommend that the board move forward, and it's even better now.
Yeah, and we have, we have a team that actually cleans up our stops too. So if there's litter and things like that, they come by and clean them up, and then we would just incorporate the stop with our other stops.
Thank you.
Trustee Baker.
I was just wondering if the pedestrian crossing is going to be a smart crossing.
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Is the pedestrian crossing that you're going to be putting in, will it be a smart cross with lights?
Well, we haven't gotten very far in the design, but part of the MOU says that they will work with the campus to flesh out the details. There'll be obviously regular meetings with the team here to make sure that the design works for everybody. And if, collectively we think that, a flash or some sort of sign, would help and improve the crossing. I think we'd probably have to do a little bit of a study around that before we commit to it. The Hawk signal presents a little bit more, that's what they're called, a little bit more maintenance requirements. So I think, one of the things that we might just take a look at is making sure that the crossing is very visible to vehicles, regardless of what we end up putting on top of that.
I have a couple questions. First of all, did I hear correctly that the college is not going to be responsible for any of the costs?
That's correct.
And second of all, how is that going to affect the existing parking spaces that are along that island there on this side of the island, on the west side? And if that's going to get taken out, or maybe it would.
No. So this stop is on the highway side.
So it's not going to be affected at all. There's
No.
the same amount of parking spaces. Okay, thank you.
Any questions or comments? I have a comment. Thank you so much, I think, for bringing this. I really, not just for this particular small project, which I know MVT has many large projects going on, but just really appreciate MVTA and your leadership, Kate, just being proactive on this. This isn't something necessarily that came from the college. The MVTA approached us about this opportunity where we could better serve students with public transportation options, more frequency in terms of level of service. Just want to acknowledge that. And to that end, I think a motion to, I would call it, support entering into an MOU, subject to terms to be negotiated, but committing the college that we are in support of this idea to allow MVTA to proceed with the design of the facility.
So moved.
Thank you.
A second.
Rios. Thank you, Trustee Kishinev. All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Unanimously approved.
Great. Thank you so much.
Very much, Kate. So we will move to another action item tonight, financial leasing with Apple.
Thank you, Trustee Dodd. This is a lease with Apple. This is one of the first salvos in our purchase to replace.
I'm sorry, we have former trustee Michael Baldini in the room and he's got his hand raised.
Sorry.
It might have been a public comment related to the bus stop.
No.
Sorry.
Excuse me, I didn't take public comment. Trustee Baldini.
Yes, good evening, Chair Dodd. I just wanted to thank you as a member of the Citizens Advisory Committee for the Napa Valley Transportation Authority. I appreciate your support. I also wanted to mention to Trustee Baker there, please also note the speed tables or speed bumps or speed humps at either end of Deemer Drive on approach to the bus pullouts. And we did hear that the concern. That's a great suggestion. So thanks very much. Thanks for your good work, Board of Trustees at Napa College. Thank you.
Thank you for your service. Always staying busy. Go ahead, Mr. Reeves. Sorry about that. That's actually my fault.
Thank you again, Trustee Dodd, and nice to hear Trustee Baldini. This is the first salvo in our efforts to replace student-facing and faculty and staff-facing machines. This is an Apple lease. The lease we determined was the best approach in this particular purpose for a couple of reasons. The most important reason is this is technology that goes in front of students in a lab, and because of the use of the kind of uses, we determine that it's best to be able to turn this over after 4 to 5, actually 4 years in this case, to upgrade technology so that students coming out of those programs are well equipped to enter the workforce. The remainder of our purchases for equipment for student, faculty, staff facing equipment will be from her funds that we'll need to expend by the remainder by June 30th. This funding source is the first year is her funds, and the subsequent 3 years of this lease are from Fund 11 operating funds because of the multi-year nature of this program.
Questions? Trustee Baker.
I'm just curious why Apple and not PC.
Apple machines are the preferred for some particular workforce development programs, including the graphic arts and many in the arts areas. Bob V can probably speak to this better than I can, but it's certainly a preferred platform for some of those areas.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. I would just echo the importance of moving forward on this. We've been talking about this for at least the last 4 years, during which time 10-year-old devices have become 14-year-old devices. And that is not acceptable for properly training our students in the areas of digital arts, in the areas of music, and other kinds of production where they're not just out of date, but they are a security flaw for the institution as well. And so I've been pushing for this lease program for some time in the Planning and Budget Committee, and I'm really delighted to see that this is moving forward, and I would strongly encourage the board to support it.
Thank you.
If I can ask a follow-up question, but why Apple and not PC compatible? Because most people have.
Sure.
Majority, I think.
It depends on the discipline. So in digital arts, for example, the workforce is using Mac devices. We have this is probably less than 25% of the devices on campus. So it's in those limited areas where in those particular programs, that's what's used out there. That's what we're trying to train our students for. And so while there may be, in some areas, PC works just fine, in other areas, the PC doesn't have the kind of capability that we would need.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Catherine, do we have any public comment on this item?
We do not.
Okay. Well, I would welcome a motion. Thank you,
Second.
Trustee Olson, and thank you, Trustee DeLuna, for your second. All in favor?
Aye.
What's so funny, Trustee Baker? Okay. Yeah, I like Apple too. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Now it's out in the public domain. Any opposed? Adopted unanimously. Thank you very much, Mr. Reeves and Mr. Vanderbilt. We will go on to an action item, a second reading of BP 3433 and BP 6300. Catherine, do we have any public comment on this?
No, we do not.
Okay, thank you. I don't see anybody either. Any comments or questions from the board? In none, then I will welcome a motion to approve a second reading of these policies.
So moved.
Thank you, Trustee Rios.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee DeLuna. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Adopted unanimously. We will go to our constituency reports. I know President Sharma is not with us this evening. She is on a flight back to DC.
With the entire ASNVC.
Yeah, I love that trip. So we will move on to our classified Senate representative. Absolutely. You don't even need to ask. I'll save it best for last. Okay. We'll save it for last. And we'll see. We'll move to classified Senate to the end of our reports and move to our classified association report. To Ms. Larson, not here. And then we will go to administrative confidential, Mr. Vanderbilt.
Thank you, President Dodd, members of the board. First, I want to invite all of you to join me tomorrow night at the opening of SpongeBob the Musical. It's a great production. I saw it this morning with 450 elementary and middle schoolers who had a blast. Even the old folks like it. You are all eligible for the NVC Friends and Family discount. Hashtag We Are NVC for tomorrow night's show only. We do have seating available, so please join us if you could to that. It is a family-friendly show. It lasts a little less than 90 minutes, so even with a 7 o'clock start time, you get the kids home in bed at a reasonable hour. So I hope to see at least a quorum of you there tomorrow. I also want to join in with my other colleagues and a hearty welcome to Dr. Priscilla Mora, our new Vice President of Academic Affairs. She brings considerable experience and new outlook to academic affairs. She's asking all of the right questions, and I'm really looking forward to working with her over the coming weeks. Tonight, I would like to highlight the work of the confidential members of the Administrative Senate. Our Senate includes 23 administrators, but also 11, soon to be 9, confidential classified employees. I could tell you all about their work, but of course it's confidential. More seriously, a confidential employee is defined by California government code as any employee who is required to develop or present management positions with respect to employer-employee relations, or whose duties normally require access to confidential information that is to contribute significantly to the development of management relations. These are the people who keep things moving. Our Human Resources Office, payroll, senior administrative and executive assistants. These employees are highly mobile. After all, a payroll person in the private sector or another governmental employee does essentially the same work as that person at NVC. But these employees have chosen to work their professional careers at NVC. It's therefore important to provide them with a competitive salary and a positive work environment in order to recruit and retain the very best. Let me lift them up by name. Michelle Bullock, Human Resources; Annie Chinavon, Human Resources; Donnell Cotton, Payroll; Catherine Kittle, President's Office; Solange Coda, Business and Finance; Martha Navarro, Student Affairs and Marine; Oakviacaro, Human Resources; Savannah Petrie, Human Resources; and Danielle Savage, Human Resources. I especially want to congratulate 2 retiring members of this group. Joanne Stubich was for many years the face of the Upper Valley campus. She really ran the place, including teaching in our community education program there, and she retired February 1st. She's now in Wisconsin. I hope she's staying warm. Senior Human Resource Analyst Becky Gonzalez is retiring at the end of the month, as you may have seen in the board doc tonight. I believe she may have memorized by chapter and verse every provision of the collective bargaining agreements for both the faculty and classified bargaining groups. The loss of her institutional memory will be keenly felt, but also her welcoming presence and calm demeanor. She's the first one who welcomed me to Napa Valley College and connected me with resources, including a realtor. So a gem of a person, and the Administrative Senate will miss her. We are submitting emeritus status requests for both of these outstanding employees. On behalf of my colleagues, please join me in appreciation for the fine work of these excellent employees. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We will move to our Academic Senate report. And I don't believe Dr. Tejada is with us this evening. And then we will go to Faculty Association to Miss Iwamoto, and then to you, Miss Alexander. Oh, after Christy.
Thanks.
Please go ahead. Excuse me.
Good evening, board. Good evening, everyone there. Good to see you all. Not much to report tonight, actually. I had the great opportunity to meet with Dr. Powell last week, talked over some things. I got to meet with Dr. Mora earlier this week, which was excellent. I'm really looking forward to working with her. And yep, negotiations, as always, are ongoing. Wanted to welcome our friend there, Bob Vandervelt, back to the negotiations team for the district. Before he sails off into the sunset with his Mai Tai and his Hawaiian shirt. I wanted to just say that we are looking at things like part-time and full-time health benefits. We are kind of making some decisions about the contract and what is going to be happening there as far as whether we're going to extend for a year or not. Of course, now that Rebecca Gonzalez is retiring, we may just decide to forget the whole thing altogether, just because she has been the institutional memory of our negotiations. She's been such a great resource to us, and we are just going to miss her immensely. And really are so appreciative of all the work she's done for us over the years. And we are also looking at some part-time office hours extensions to make sure that our students are being treated equitably, so that a student who has a full-time teacher gets 5 hours per week in office hours where they can have access to that instructor one-on-one, whereas someone who takes a part-time instructor in that very same subject, in that very same class and level, may have no or very few office hours. We're trying to make more office hours for our part-time faculty. Other than that, we are just plugging along, and that is all for my report.
Thank you very much, Christy. Ready? Okay, perfect.
I was hoping people would come, but I think they're shy. So they're not gonna come. That's okay.
They're here in spirit.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. The Classified Senate extended. At the December Board of Trustees meeting, we had the pleasure of hearing Dr. Guerrero's report about his team analysis of the students provided over the fall semester. I really enjoyed that report and hearing the quantifiable data that he shared. The report has come back into my mind over the past few months and has given me pause to think about the function of the various reports that are offered in this setting, and in particular, what my goal is with my own reports as the representative of the Classified Senate. Dr. Guerrero's inspiration, I've decided to use Classified Senate reports in part to highlight the enormous contributions that classified staff made through their daily work. Had a similar idea. We had ESP, me and Bob. In recent months, it has not been uncommon to talk about community building and about coming together as a whole. We can't know and care about each other if we don't learn about each other. Dr. Powell is often encouraging people to talk to each other, which is fascinating that you have to remind us of that, but we're grateful that you do. It's really awesome. Since it's difficult to go and talk to each individual classified professional here, it seems like a great idea for me to introduce the work that we do and to the members of our group. Hopefully people will start to come to these meetings. That's my wish. Tonight, I'm going to highlight the classified professionals who work as custodial staff here. They are, I'll just name them too, like Bob did. We didn't even plan this. I swear it seems like we did, but we didn't. Jefferson Matei and Mike Rayford, who are both leads of the custodial staff. Anna Garcia, Irene Avina, Roman Chavez Sosa, Lauren Smith, Rebecca Avina Arroyo, Jovita de la Cruz, Mario Pancarte, Florentina Aguilar, Samuel Steen, and on Williams. Out their work, we really could not operate here. Their work includes, but is not limited, office maintenance, mopping, waxing, and maintaining endless carpets. That was my addition. In addition, they take away several hundred cans full of garbage, recycling, and compost every day. The custodial footprint at NVC is astounding. Our colleagues care for and maintain 90 offices, 69 bathrooms, and are responsible for the care and cleaning of a whopping 298,219 square feet. And there's 12 people. And sometimes there's like 8 to 10 who are present, which means extra and take on more buildings. So I just wanted to really highlight their work and give praise and so much and so discreetly that they may even seem like magic to those of us who benefit from their efforts, but actually it's a lot of hard work and not magic at all. So that's to them. I wish they were here for us to say thank you to. And then to close the report, I just wanted to share that we're going to have our classified Senate retreat on April 4th, which is Tuesday. We have 42 RSVPs for yes, which I'm really proud of. That's actually taken a lot of teamwork and care and Dr. Powell's support and the cabinet support. So we're really grateful. And we're going to be working on shared governance training and we have people from us about like 5 different topics. So hopefully it'll be a really great. That's the end of my report. Thank you so much.
No, it's good. Here to our custodial staff. I'm surprised they're because I love our custodial staff too because they're always smiling. Do we have? Yeah.
Oh, good.
Well, I'm happy to repeat myself too after and every trustees are. You guys missed the wonderful comments that Danielle made about the team, and I just wanted to echo that. Love working. You guys are always. I was saying I was surprised that you guys weren't here because you guys are normally not shy at all. Daniel said, "Oh, they're not here. Maybe they're just shy." But I said, "No, that's not the case at all. Everyone just kind of work happy, smiling, engaging. Even though many times behind the scenes, but really just on the front lines." Daniel, I totally agree too. During COVID, people were working at home. You guys were here, and so. And I think we all saw that and certainly recognize that on a day-to-day basis. So, you guys, thank you so much. Man. Well, welcome to our meeting, and thankfully we don't have much more left to go. Too.
If I can just kind of echo some of the comments that have been made, that while you're often unseen, as everybody has said, you really are like part of the foundation of this place, which you don't often see, but you hope is really strong and, supports the rest of the structure. And that's what you guys do. You allow everybody else to be able to do their job by doing yours, making sure that everything is ready, and especially for the students. So I want to thank you for all your work, your hard work. It means a lot to the students and all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Rios. We will go on to our next agenda item, which is our president and cabinet reports. And this is just to let the team know, this is just an opportunity. What we're doing right now is kind of summing up at the end of the meeting where Dr. Powell is just giving general updates with the cabinet and the different VPs and what's going on in each division.
I think we'll start with Jim. Yeah.
I'm back. Thank you. I'd like to welcome Dr. Moore as well. It's a pleasure to be part of a team with so much experience in a building team. So welcome, Dr. Moore. She already came in this morning. She'd been here 3 days, asked me 3 hard questions, and I told her I have to get back to her. So she's on it. I would refer you to my written report. I'm not going to spend much time here. I reported on much of it. I just wanted to bring up to speed a little bit on the institutional technology, where we are with that. We mentioned earlier about our efforts to replace those machines that are need to be replaced, but also present a security breach. We're attempting to implement the MFA process, the multi-factor authorization or access. That's been delayed a bit due to a few items, a few issues that we're trying to take care of. We did meet today with the Ellucian company to talk about options for how we can best manage our IT resources. So we expect to be able to have an update about how we might approach IT management, IT development over time in the near future. So stay tuned for that. I would an update on the bookstore RFP. We had a very aggressive schedule that we thought we'd bring a recommendation to you this meeting. However, we found it was too aggressive. And so we need to bring that recommendation to you at the next meeting. We had 2 responses to the RFP, and we anticipate we're sending back some RFIs, some requests for information. So we anticipate bringing that recommendation to you at our next meeting. A student housing update. As well as I do, we've experienced a little bit of rain over the course of the last, how long has it been now?
Months.
Thank you. Months. We're up to the 3rd story, but the wood still is pretty wet. But we are doing everything we can to expedite that process. We have folks living locally in hotels, always ready to get back on site. We have a workout meeting scheduled for the 27th of March with the contractor to look at strategies to make sure or do everything we can to have those buildings available to students in August of 24. I have spoken with Dr. Mora about the need to look at our fall schedule in terms of how we can accommodate perhaps a slightly altered opening schedule for housing. So Dr. Mora is on it.
And that's for fall 24.
Correct. Yeah. The Wine Education Center agreement, that sounds like a recurring dream, but I think we're close to putting some ink on that $10 million donation. So much credit goes to the foundation and others who've worked hard to make that happen. Facilities the city of St. Helena is now occupying site at the Upper Valley campus. We've had some initial kind of speed bumps relative to getting heat up there when it's been pretty chilly, but I think we have made some improvements there, and we have some additional work we need to do. If you'd like to see in real time how much rain is falling on the residential site, there's a link in the report, and it's a real time link, and you can see how we're moving along there. With that, I would conclude my report.
Thank you, Jim. I'll keep mine short. Just want to add my welcome to Dr. Mora. Welcome. I am so happy, and we are so happy to have you here as a member of the team. As Jim mentioned, Dr. Moore has been incredibly busy in the few days that she's been here with a number of very key meetings with influential leaders across the campus, and is doing really great work digging into some of the key issues. One of them being what our schedule for fall 24 is going to look like is one of her first tasks among many others. So we are very happy to have you here. I am very appreciative of the work that you are doing and you will continue to do, and welcome to your first board meeting. All right. As you've heard from the number of the reports and the number of the documents that were shared within board docs today. We are incredibly busy. The campus and the college is making significant progress in the key issues. And I do want to extend my thanks collectively to all the members of the campus community, those present here physically, those out there in Zoomlandia, and those at home enjoying time with their families. I appreciate the work that you do. And while we are in the thick of it in the semester, and we have a few more months to go, I know that we're going to continue to make great progress and just blaze right on through the spring semester into the summer. So thank you all. The rest of my report you can see in board docs. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Then we'll go to our committee reports. Is there anything, Trustee DeLuna from DOS?
No, our next meeting is going to be March 28th.
Okay, thank you. Viticulture and Winery Foundation, Trustee Rios. Quarterly meetings. Okay, I won't bother you next month then. Audit and finance has nothing to report. And real property, anything else in addition to the MBTA?
Yes, we did meet regarding Mount Veeder, Bumpy Camp.
Yeah.
And we had a presentation by the consultant who's been, he's a landscape architect and he's been up there, Blake Joplin, I think is his name. Is that correct? Is that Blake? Okay. So he's been up on the property for quite a while now, mapping the property. He showed us the mapping he's done, locating all of those features that there's still some trace of that used to be there, like the orchards, the roadways, things that are kind of getting lost to, new growth and fallen trees and all of that. He's been mapping all of that. I think he's found a spring, because water is obviously one of the resources that we need to try to utilize the property. So he's been doing a great job of that. He's still working on trying to find a few features. But the other thing he's doing is trying to identify potential uses for the property, that obviously education being the top one of those, and the other kind of category is a community connection, finding uses where the community could come in, whether it's hiking trails, educational tours, things like that. There are, however, a number of challenges, to using the property. I know we've talked in the past about a meeting conference center up there. He talked about that. It looks like maybe collaborating with another group, and I'm forgetting the name of what the group is that has a facility not too far.
Lighthouse for the Blind?
Yeah.
Yes. Pretty close by that. If we wanted to do that, we could probably use their facilities. But developing this property is going to be a challenge. I mean, there have been classes out there already. Some of those classes that don't meet. Again, another challenge is the distance and the roadway. If you've been out there, it's not an easy road for people to drive, and it's extremely narrow when you get to the property. And it's that easement to get in there is kind of difficult. And it would present a problem probably for a lot of development that would increase the use substantially of the property. So the other restrictions or problems we would face are just the restrictions that are in the grant, the property to the college that limit the development. County restrictions, of course, it may be possible to opt out of some regulation like we did for the housing project, but of course it still applies, which could be challenged to, doing any earth moving to build anything up there. There is the one house there, and a couple of other outbuildings, but even developing facilities, if you're going to have large groups out there, really the only bathroom is the one in the house, and probably not sufficient for bringing whole classes of there. Yes, there are many bushes, but actually there aren't as many because it's been cleared. We've had fire and there's been clearing going on, but the Napa Resource Conservation District is actually preparing a forest management plan for the property and has been engaged in activity up there to clean up the property. And so that's to continue. There looks like there are opportunities to potentially put in, one of the things that's been talked about, there aren't any plans at this point, but possibly put in vineyard, whether that works for our BWT program or potentially one of the things that Blake mentioned was, maybe leasing, to bring in some income. If we can't use it, if we can develop some vineyard in that old orchard area, there is a neighbor that's a winery, that borders the property. That might make sense that if they were interested in developing vineyard to enter into some agreement with them. So there are a number of ideas that Blake has come up with, but nothing specific that being pursued at the moment, given all of these things that we need to look into more, about even just the basics, the access, the facilities, and things of that nature. But the exploration is continuing. Dr. Powell, is there anything or
something that we, I think you might have suggested that we might need a board field trip up there to walk around the property and take a look.
Yeah, some of us have been there, but I think certainly new board members haven't been there, and it is a beautiful property. And I think it's definitely worth everybody going up to take a look.
Yes, Trustee Baker.
Didn't we invest some funds sometime in the last year or so in exploring other, like possibly having like a forest management education program or fire, something to that effect? I don't remember when that was or what might have happened to it.
Yeah, that was, there was discussion about that, and part of it also, I think, was connected to the workforce group that we had up there helping to clean up the property. But that's one of the ideas, that what the property can be used for. And I think one of the potential for this fire management plan in the conservation district is to try to develop something like that.
Awesome. Thank you very much for the comprehensive update, Trustee Rios. McPherson Distinguished Teaching Award.
Yeah, so applications for McPherson nominations are due at the end of this month, March 31st, and then we'll spend the next week and a half after that scoring the applications and deliberating and choosing a winner.
And Dr. Shank Student Affairs Award, Trustee Kishinev.
The information for that just went out, and so we'll be looking at that and have more to report on that at the next meeting.
Okay. Yeah, I think nominations are due November 14th or something around that time. Or not November, April 14th. Sorry. I don't know. Correction. Thank you, Trustee Baker, for your help always. Nothing to report from the foundation. I think Jim gave a nice little sum up in terms of the Wine Education Center. And we will move to future agenda item requests. Any updates? I know we did tick one off the list with the land acknowledgement today, so it always feels good to be productive in that area. Any other thoughts? Seeing none, we will. Catherine, you kind of have a hand up, so no? Okay. Okay, great. Then we'll move on to trustee reports, and we will go from my left to Trustee Olson.
So I attended the first day of the Napa Valley Wellness Conference today. It's a 2-day conference. I'm on the planning committee, and we had a really engaging youth panel that spoke about the impact of racism on mental health after we watched an indie film called Race to be Human. It was really great. I wish we would have recorded it and shared it. There's about 250 people that have come from all over California to attend the conference. Dr. Powell is attending tomorrow. I was speaking to Dr. Musetti, Superintendent Musetti, and she's really grateful that you're coming and really getting involved with the district and our K through 12 program. So I think that you're really being recognized and appreciated in the community for showing up for these kinds of things. So tomorrow will be a great day of breakouts. I'm speaking at a couple of them, and also the keynote speaker is Sean Ginwright, who wrote the 4 Pivots, a book which reimagines justice and equity in education. So it'll be really great. It's the afternoon session. So looking forward to having you there.
Thank you. Trustee Delana.
So again, welcome, Dr. Mora. I was able to come to the little welcome reception for you the other day, and it was great to see all the staff here. And then also we had our Heart of Napa event. It's put on by CBNL, the organization that I work for, during the day. And it's just incredible to see all the community-based organizations and nonprofits, volunteers, youth volunteers, being recognized for all the hard work that they do all year. I'm always inspired and just grateful for everything that we do. And I'm hoping that we'll have more openings to actually bring these organizations onto our campuses, either at Valley or here at the Napa Valley College, just so that we can share our spaces with everybody. So I think that's all.
I agree with that. Trustee Baker.
Well, welcome, Dr. Morrow. Welcome to Napa Valley College. Welcome to my area and to my neighborhood. So, and if any of my Halloween decorations end up in your yard, I apologize. I think they would have got stuck in the creek before they got to you. Just a couple quick things. I wanted to share that I attended a meeting at NVUSD, where we were talking about a number of things, but one of the main topics was their new ethnic studies course that they are implementing. It's a state mandate that they have to have, all of the schools across the state have to have this by I think it's school year 24-25, but they are implementing it a year early as an elective for 9th graders. And there's really good information about not only that course, but also the other things that they're doing to incorporate ethnic studies and appreciation for that side of history and humanities throughout their curriculum all the way down to kindergarten. And they also noted that they are working with our ethnic studies department to develop that. So I was very pleased to hear that. Another thing is, I hope this isn't inappropriate, but how many times have I said that in a meeting? I wonder. But I have heard that the LGBTQIA community in Napa is looking for a location to host a Rocky Horror Picture Show program in June. And I know that would probably give Bob V a heart palpitations to see toilet paper and water guns in the pack, but perhaps the small theater.
I'm good with that. My last day on campus is June 2nd, so I'm fine. I'm sure we can work with the facilities to find an appropriate venue.
Would love to do that. So if I could just find out who to put them in touch with, I would be happy to make that happen.
It'd be Samantha Maddox in the facilities department.
I will work on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Baker. Trustee Rios.
Just one kind of informational thing. I think it's kind of interesting to see what's happening, throughout the county and up in my district. I don't know how many of you have followed what the saga of the former Napa County Fairgrounds in Calistoga has been, but the city had a special election for a bond to try to develop the property, and it tanked. I mean, it was ugly. So still struggling up there on what to do with that property, what its future use may be. So I think it's good to kind of keep an eye and ear on those things. I'm looking forward to the welcome that's coming up for Dr. Powell and the Mariachi Festival. Should be a lot of fun. I know Ines will get up and probably dance while we're there and sing. Now, of course, she'll bring her hat. She'll be ready. So, and that's it.
Thank you, Trustee Rios. Trustee Kishinev.
I'm super excited to hear about Rocky Horror Show. I can't wait to take my kids. Maybe. I met with the synagogue in Napa, the congregation Beth Shalom, and with the Islamic Center of Vallejo, with the hopes of possibly having an educational cultural festivals here and maybe learning communities to assist students in those communities. I met with several of my constituents, including Lisa Chu, who serves on the school district board, and they were concerned about, or they wanted to know about dual enrollment issues and what we're planning on that. So it occurs to me maybe we can get an update on that in the near future, and reached out to the principal of the high school, American Union, as well. She's a busy lady, is perfectly understandable. High school principals are busy, but I let her know that I am at her service, and let me know if I can do anything to assist the high school connecting with the college. That's about it.
Thank you, Trustee Kishinev. I will just go out with your guys' reports and leave it at that. And I will, we will, for our next meeting, meet on April 20th. And if there are nothing else to discuss, we will adjourn at 7:11 this evening. And thank you to the custodial team for being here. It's really cool to have you guys here. Appreciate you.
Thank you.